Hey everybody, welcome to another Rainmaker podcast. And today we got a special episode called Inside the Sale, where we're going to be talking about the old versus the new way to sell. And we've got a Rainmaker himself on, Johnny Nitafan. And so stick around, grab a pen and a piece of paper, because we're going to be showing you how you can 2, even 3x the amount of sales that you're making. Johnny, my man, welcome to the podcast. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for the honor of having me on, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
for
you.
sure. So agents watching it, like I said, make sure you got a pen and a piece of paper, because if any preview of what we were just talking about before we jumped on, you guys are going to get a ton of value and nuggets. And not only is it just somebody that's just going to talk the talk, it's somebody that has walked the walk, that has written 100K in a month, issue paid 75K as his best month, and in that 100K month, issue paid a little over 65K. So you want to grab a pen and a piece of paper, because we're going to give you some actionable tips that if you're still doing it the old way, right, you may need to come over and start doing the new way. So Johnny, man, let's just kind of start from the top. Have you always done telesales?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And by the way, I love everything that you're doing on here and how you're really helping agents scale and grow. And it's really cool to see just from afar what you've been able to do and accomplish. And it's really cool. So a little bit
Thanks, man. I
about
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, bro. And I've really appreciated hanging out with you too. We were running up another podcast on mine, and you were dropping some bombs, which was really cool as well. But yeah, so I got into the industry a little over a year ago, and what's crazy is that I got in. I started as a Starbucks barista and found my way into the insurance industry because of my my father-in-law, right? And so he got me into the business, and I think maybe he was telling like, hey, you should probably get in the insurance industry. I don't know if Starbucks will pay the bills, but I just got in, right? So I started going and really pushing, and then all of a sudden I found the life insurance industry after I was in the industry, cold door knocking for I don't know, like 3 months, business to business. And if you guys have ever been to Phoenix, it's huge, right? So I was going business to business to business, 30 to 40 businesses daily, right? So this was a lot. It was like not just like, it was a lot, right? So did that. And these were like, I wasn't even working leads. So when I found out you could work leads and do life insurance to where you get a nice upfront commission, I was like, dude, I need to get into this somehow, some way. So I ended up getting into it. And I started in March of 2022. So a little over a year ago. And so from there, started just virtual, right? Started doing Zooms, and I just saw a ton of people no-show, right? So I set 17 appointments my first week, had pretty much everybody. 4 showed up, and they were just horrible presentations. The presentation went only for maybe like 5 minutes on a couple of them. So that just shows that they were just not solid appointments at all. I think they possibly like just had some grace for me and just like, this guy seems new, I might show up, right? So they did, and I didn't close anybody, and it was discouraging. Didn't close anybody my first 2 weeks, didn't make any sales. But what's cool is at that time, I was like, I need to figure this out. I don't even care what it is. I got local leads, and I just started going in the field. So I set appointments. I drove 2.5 hours from here to Prescott, which is like 2 hours from here. Went there, and I ended up I did like 4,500 AP my first day. But here's the thing, right? From here, it was horrible. I wrote 4,500 in 2 sales, but in one of the homes I was there for 6 hours, bro.
What?
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is painful, right? This guy got declined from 4 applications. And then we finally got one under review, got sent to underwriting, ended up getting declined. I'm like, this is horrible. And so drove all that way. And the other guy, I actually messed up the banking information, put it on direct billing. So I was like, it didn't ask for the social, but it approved them. And what happened is direct billing is they mail they do like a money order. And so I completely messed it up. And I'd end up not getting paid because I called the guy the next day. Hey, you got approved. Congratulations. We actually need for you to send in payment. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if I really want this anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I drove all the way out there, did 4,500 and nothing issued. And I still was left without a commission check. So I ended up continue doing face-to-face for maybe a couple more appointments. And then I went on the Ultimate Agent, right? And you guys might have seen that. And that's the last time I ever went in the house. And if you guys watched that, I don't know if you guys watched that. I think it was on episode 2 or 3, but I door knocked a lead and he like cussed me out. It's all on the show, by the way, on Cody Aston's channel. But I got cussed out and I was like, I'm never going to another door again. And from there, I never have. And that was like over a year ago.
Now, before we get into anything, I want to kind of slow down here because I was a sponsor for the Ultimate Agent. Definitely love the idea. It was the first time something had been done like that. So shout out to Cody for just innovating in the space so much. One of my good friends. But how did being on the Ultimate Agent change you in the way that you saw yourself? And what kind of position did that put you in leaving that after that, no matter what the results were? It seems like you're winning now. So that was awesome. Like what changed for you since the Ultimate Agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I'm super grateful for that opportunity to be able to do that. I would say being able to just get in a room of people who are winners. It taught me on the show, what it specifically taught me is it's win or go home every day. And like on the show, if you don't sell, you're going home. They're literally you buy the ticket, you buy your own ticket. They don't buy it for you. You buy your own ticket home. And what it taught me on that show is it's win or go home every day. But what if we had our mindset set on that every single day, that it's win or go home? If I don't make a sale today, like I'm out, and treat this as a game. It taught me massive urgency. There's no time for anything else except revenue generating activities, right? So I deleted social media pretty much that whole time. And because there's no time for it, you need to just be on the phone calling clients all day, every day. If you're not speaking with somebody, like you're literally bound to go home. So that's one of the biggest things I learned from there. But then also what I would say over the past year, I've been able to get in rooms with people that I could only have thought of, right? And it's because they knew me from one way or another, mostly because of Ultimate Agent. That's how they knew me, right? So it allowed me to get my name out there more, start giving me the confidence to start doing my own content, start filming and just really documenting my own stuff. And from that, like it's really just springboarded me forward to meet people that I never thought I'd meet, right? So like John Wetmore, for example, being able to hang out with him, Nate Offer, Roger Short. I think of David Price, right? Like I'm working with David Price now, and it all springs from the Ultimate Agent. It's our relationship that started there. I would say the network is the biggest thing that I've really taken from that.
Yeah. And it's funny because like as you say those names, right? I had a separate journey, but it's the exact same, which is why I understand why we're connected, because I've seen your growth since the Ultimate Agent. And I don't know if you remember, but you were on my podcast before, right?
Yeah.
With Earl, right? This is crazy. And what's funny? A lot of people were. Jesse Parks was on there, a lot of other contestants. And when I finally met them, I was like, you were on my podcast before. They were like, wait, what? So, but that just goes to show you, the power of social media and attention and awareness. And so I've kind of had some growth from there as well. Now speaking on stage at 8% with Cody. And then now we're going to be doing the 7-Figure Sales Summit coming up in November, where we're going to be doing a one-day, all-intensive, immersive mastermind, giving the cutting edge, the best training from some of those people that you mentioned. And, being an Ultimate Agent, you got to be around those people, right? Which changes you, which is Nate Offer, the person that could produce 50K producers, you know what I mean? Really, really easy. John Wetmore, just he could talk on for days about stories, but what I call him the $13 million man. And then Cody with his network, right, allowing you to get into those rooms.
Yeah.
Roger Short, master marketer, genius mind, the most caring person you could ever meet. and then building what he's building over there at Impact. Just so
Yeah.
many people that can get you in the room. So how important is it getting in the room?
No, it's huge, man. I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't able to. And that's what I tell a lot of people this. Like, I feel lucky. I really feel lucky to be in the position I'm in, because it out of like thousands of people that registered to be on Ultimate Agent, Cody picked me, which I'm super grateful for this to this day. And then from there, being able to get in the room with those people is huge, because not only are you able to get like the experience, the wisdom, like literally ask them any question, like they're giving and giving and giving and giving and giving. I remember going up there's so many stories that I have, right? Going up to Pete Fournier, asking, how do I start like really increasing my profitability as an agent? Going up to John Wetmore at SWAT, Nate's event, and going up to him and saying, hey, how do I double my income here in the next 90 days? We'll get double the leads, right? And we're breaking this down for 45 minutes. It's really being able to like get a personal connection and relationship, and also get known from these people, because not only are they seeing you in person, but then when you start posting content, when you start following them, when you start connecting with them, they're like, oh, dude, I know that guy, right? And when especially the power of creating content, Luke Akery and I were actually making a video. And by the way, I wouldn't have known and been able to have a relationship with Luke Akery, Tony Merwin, Joe Camper if it weren't for going to events and getting in the room. But once you get into the room and when you really start doing that, like the power of content's crazy. People think
Yeah.
they actually do more than they do, right? So once you see them, a lot of people just see you through the screen, but when they actually see you, feel your energy, who you are, what I've seen is it's really grown more of a connection, more of a relationship to that person. And then they start following you more and more and more. That's not only with
Yeah.
people in the network, but then also that's with people that maybe that you're trying to recruit, or maybe you're trying to sell whatever to, right?
Yeah.
It's being able to build the audience that way, I think, is huge.
Yeah, 100%. And shout out to the syndicate. This past 8% conference that I spoke at, they rented out an incredible Airbnb, and I got
Yeah.
to hang out with Joe in the suite, and Eric Amati and Merlin, and all of those guys. Oh yeah, Luke. Yeah, his booth was right across from mine.
Yeah.
And so we had never met, but we knew of each other, and I'm supposed to be hopping on his podcast. That reminds me, I need to text him. And so we got to hang out. It was an absolutely incredible weekend. But yeah, people don't put the stock in. People don't understand it when they don't have the network. But when you have
Yeah.
the network, you notice that, oh, that's the next level of the game, is having the people in your Rolodex. So this
Yeah.
episode, go ahead. You got something else you want to
Yeah,
say?
well, what I was gonna say is like it's funny because whenever I have a problem with something, right? Whenever I'm trying to figure out, hey, how do I build better? How do I increase my LTV per client, right? How do I cross sell better? There's literally like I'm thinking about who do I know? Who do I know? Who can I think of? Oh, Pete Fournier. How do I build? Oh, David Price. Oh, who can I think of doing monster numbers? Oh, Arturo Johnson. Who could I think about marketing? Luke Akery, right? And you just think of these people and you're able to get their numbers. And honestly, whenever I'm in the room, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I reach out, right? And the power of that, like, hey, is there any way I could possibly get your number just to keep in touch, right? And that's how I was able to get into rooms like I didn't do that with Ryan Pineda when I was there. I didn't get his phone number, but like Jacob Hopkins, right? That's another guy. I was like, hey, we should keep in touch. He's the VP sales at acquisition.com. And so when you're thinking about that, because him and I are texting right now from there, how do you really increase your sales process as a team? How do you increase your sales team? How do you really build culture, right? What are the levers that you need to pull? And him and I have been being able to talk through that. And so I would say getting in the room is huge because you're able to build a relationship. And if you're not, you're honestly just missing out.
Yeah. And to piggyback on what you said there, sometimes you got to humble yourself, right? And be
Yeah.
and have some humility to say, "Hey, man, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm a big fan of yours. Is there any chance if I have any questions that I can reach out to you?" And that reminds me of my mentor. He told me a story one time. He said that there was a billionaire and a millionaire, and they were sitting there, and the billionaire asked the millionaire a question. He's like, "If you lost everything, what would you do to get back?" And the millionaire was like, "Well, if I've done it once, I can do it again. And I've grinded this whole time. So within 12 months, I could get back." And the millionaire then asked him, well, what would you do if you lost it all? And the billionaire said, yeah, that's a great answer. But what I would do is I would just call my friends. And see, what we don't realize is that the power of your network is like you're
Mm,
usually one call away from the solution if you have a big problem like that. And that's why it's so important to have a network that opens doors. So yeah, man. But again, just to transition, this podcast is about inside the sales. So now that we got a background of the ultimate agent, the top closer on here, let's talk about some sales, man. Let's talk about some good stuff.
hey, man.
So what are some of the common mistakes that you see that newer agents are making if they're doing telesales, right? From listening to calls, or some of the mistakes that you were making in the beginning that once you figured those things out allowed you to write 100K in a month, to issue 75. Because some people may be watching this and be like, you know, those numbers sound astronomical, like, you know, that's not impossible. What were some things and some lessons that you learned over the past 12 months to be able to do that?
Yeah, man, there's so much that comes to my head, honestly, when when you say that, right? And I just think of the new people, right, on my team that I'm really able to like coach and train, right? And it's asking for permission, right? Like a lot of times we're asking for permission. Hey, is there any way that you can get your medications, maybe, hopefully, right? And instead of like, hey, no, go ahead and grab your medications, let me know when you're ready, I can wait, not a problem. And you just sit there and wait. It's like assuming, right? But then sometimes you go too far, and this is what we're preached all the time to: assume the sale, assume the sale, assume the sale, act excited, and they're gonna buy from you. But the reality is that that's not 100% true. And so it's really coming out of a place of care, wanting to help the other person. And when I really started what happened in my business was I would go out, write a bunch of business. Not a lot of it would get issued. I wouldn't get paid a ton from it. And so the numbers seemed inflated, right? They would get inflated. It seemed like a lot better, right? And so then what I would actually be making and depositing. And so it really came back to, okay, let's get back to the basics and really trying to find the need and filling it, like finding a gap of in whatever they have in the coverage that they have. Maybe they're looking for more coverage and they have expenses that'll supersede what they currently have. So you find that gap, right? And a lot of this, as you guys probably know, is NEPQ, right? And a lot of it has come from NEPQ. I've really dove deep into it now. But even before I even stepped into that, is really asking the right questions to get the client to tell themselves what they need and them to say it, right? Because if you say it, and this is another common mistake that I would make, is I would say it. And if you as the sales guy say it, they're not going to validate it as much as them saying it. You need them to say it. When they say it, it's true. So you need to get them to say it. So you need to ask questions so that they say their problem, right? So were you looking just to kind of leave something extra for the family or just cover the final expenses, right? That's a very simple one, but okay, do you have any coverage in place currently? No, not yet. Oh, wow. So kind of walk me through this. Say, God forbid, something were to happen 3 days from now, because none of us know the exact time or hour, right? But like, what would that look like for Miss Mary to actually be able to cover the final expenses? What would that look like? How would that play out? Kind of walk me through this, right? Fill me in. Kind of what got you motivated to start looking around for life insurance? Oh, wow. You said your daughter just passed? Oh my gosh. Like, and you don't want to brush that off. Time out. Like, you don't want to brush that off and just like move on. Like, okay, ask the next question. Like, just have a conversation. Oh my gosh, you said your daughter just passed? Like, are you doing okay? Like, did did she have any coverage in place? Oh my gosh, she didn't. Wow, okay. And like, how was that having to come up with the final expenses? Like, kind of walk me through that. Oh wow, so you had to start, you said a GoFundMe? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I mean that was probably $10,000, $15,000. Like, how was that having to come out of pocket for that? And they're like, oh my gosh, right? And it's like, so kind of what I guess kind of what I'm hearing is you don't want to make sure that you want to make sure that your family's not left with the same burden that you did, and that you have coverage in place when that time does come, so they're not having to come up with all the final expenses, come up with like having to start a GoFundMe, maybe pass the hat around. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. So, and then really asking questions, but again, you don't want to you don't want to tell them what they need. That's where I made the mistake, right? Like it's obvious you pointed out, but if you say it, it leads to a lot more sales resistance, one, and two, they're not really actually wanting it. You're just pushing them through. And it's
Yeah.
easier to push them through, right? Because it's a senior, they're a lot of time, like it's easier to push them through like an application. Hey, let's just see if we can get you qualified. Let's just see whatever, right? You hear that all the time. But the reality is it's not really solving a big problem. And it's just
Yeah.
pushing and pushing and
Yeah.
pushing and pushing.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. And so that was so good. And so let's talk about that, like the old way, and then like this new way, where you're asking more of a question based framework, right?
Yeah.
And so it leads to an objectionless close, because through asking those questions and actually having them walk themselves through a real life scenario. And there's one thing about the mind, right? The mind can't tell whether it's a dream or it's reality, right? So the trauma that they're
Mm-hmm.
going through, like, people relive past traumas over and over again. That doesn't mean that it's happening. It happened
Yeah.
once, but most people relive the same thing over and over again. So when you walk people through a situation like that, they're like, oh man, you can feel that. And then what happens is if you do it that way, they're more likely to keep it in place as opposed to the old way. And you steamroll through the process, right? And it ends up being a chargeback or being declined, where they give you one number different on the banking information, or they give you a wrong birthday, or they don't give you that medication. And you're like,
Yeah.
man, I got everything. Chances are that happened because you kind of steamroll through. So let's talk about the old way versus the new way. What are some nuances and differences that you've seen with your production since you made that change?
Well, the increased close ratio, right? And I haven't even bought anything with any PQ, anything like that. And so I wouldn't say I even understand it fully. But my close ratio has been crazy, right? So I was lifetime, I've been about 45% one call closing, right? So I literally call and then I close. And that's like doing a presentation, 42% close ratio. And that straight one call close, right?
Mm.
So it's good, but like it's not great at the same time, right? So like it's going to be different for a one call close because you're calling them up, they may be driving, right? And you're trying to close them. Hey, pull over on the side, let's get this taken care of. Grab a pen and paper. You hear that so many times, right? So it's going to be different than like having a preset appointment. But my close ratio has gone to like 60-70% when I actually am able to go through this and ask them the right questions. And what you're saying was right. If you really solve the problem, because it comes down to one, diffusing the situation, right? You want to let their guard down from the very, very, very beginning. You gotta get their guard down one way or another, right? So like at the beginning of the call, setting it up, hey, the first part of this call is it's pretty basic. It's more for us to kind of find out like what you might be eligible for, like what you have in place now when something does happen, compared to what you might be looking for as far as financial protection, just to kind of see what that like gap looks like, to see if we can actually help you. All right. And then going into it, and if you feel like this might be what you're looking for, we can actually discuss possible next steps. Would that help you? Yes. And you're going very, very, very non-invasive, to where you're asking questions and they're making a buying decision. When I present numbers, I am trying to have them make an actual purchasing decision, right? I'm not saying, hey, let's submit the application, make sure you can get approved. I don't know if we can get you qualified. You do want to say that, like some of that stuff, like this is an application process. This isn't one and done, right? So you're saying that, but you want them, when they're picking a number, that they are bought, like they are buying the policy right now today, right? And there's so many things that brings, right? One, it's their decision and their choice. They're purchasing it. So they'll do whatever you need to do from there, right? So since I've done this, I haven't been doing crazy amount of presentations. I actually talk to less people and close more deals, I don't have to close much, right? Last week did 13 presentations and closed 11 apps, right? I didn't close I didn't close 11 out of 13 appointments, but I got 2 husband and wife apps. So that's what you can skew that. I just closed 11 apps on 13 presentations, right? I technically closed 9 presentations out of 13, but 11 apps anyways. And so you talk to less people, but like they're actually making a decision, a choice to buy. So from those 13 and now 15 presentations I've done for throughout the whole week, I've only got one person to object to banking. And the reason because of that, and you talked about the objectionless close, it's because they're buying. Like they're actually making a purchasing decision. So when you're asking for their social, when you're asking for their banking, there's ways to do it, but that sets it up to where you shouldn't get those objections on the back end. You got to frame it right. So the way I frame the social is you ask some certain questions, right? So, okay, so what I say is like, what's your full legal name? The same one attached to your social, whatever, right? And I haven't got this objection in a while now. So they'll say whatever. They'll say, oh, okay, it's John D. Smith. All right, perfect. And just a few questions. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. But are you a U.S. citizen? Yes. Okay. And what state were you born in? Indiana, right? Okay. And I'm assuming you were born in the U.S. because you were born there. Yes. Okay, great. And then your social. And I just like ask those basic questions, kind of like you'd fill out on like a passport or fill out like on a legal document. It's going to say like, were you born in the U.S.? Are you a U.S. citizen? What state were you born in? And then ask for your social right there. They kind of know what's coming, and I'm pre-framing it very specific so that it just go very like about it, right?
Yeah.
And
So hold on. Let's slow down real quick because you're dropping some gems, and I want to kind of break this up. Just if this is like a newer agent that hasn't really seen somebody go through this on this level. Some agents that may be nervous or worried about asking somebody for their banking or social, like what's your mentality or your mindset about how you approach that?
Yeah, so it's like acting like it's not a big deal. Being able to pre-frame, like I would say pre-framing is huge, and being able to ask it the same exact way that other you ask other things, right? So like the way that you ask the health questions, you're not nervous about that, right? So they're gonna hear your nervousness on the phone, right? Because I do only telesales, right? I call on this phone, right? And I'm just like I'm on the phone or I got my headset on, and that's all they have. All they have is your voice. And so if you're nervous, that everybody gets nervous, right? I want to reassure that everybody does get nervous, but they they don't know that you're nervous if you act confident and you speak confidently, right? And you ask it like it's not a big deal, like them saying like what medications they're on. It's not that big of a deal, right? And so you want to add. I am very, very, very specific on asking it the same exact way that I ask all the other things, right? And I don't say like, "What's your social security number?" I just ask the questions and I say, "And then your social," and you just not social security number. What I've seen is that like some people that's great, some people not as great, but I just like ask it like just the regular way that I ask the other questions, and you want to pre-frame it well as well. So that's what I would say to your point. I don't know if that answered the question. I kind of forgot the original question.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just wanted to know, like, your mindset going into asking about the personal information. And again, basically, what you're saying is like it's only weird if you make it weird, right?
Yeah,
If it's
exactly,
normal, if it's
exactly.
normal, like you just treat it like another normal question, right? And so
Yes.
they don't know any difference. So, how much rapport do you typically try to build in your call, or are you one of those person that talks about random things, or do you like use kind of a professional frame to build rapport? Like, what's your philosophy on how you open up
That,
a call?
that's a great one, right? Because there's two different schools of thought. I've never been really like trying to build that rapport. It's kind of weird. It feels weird to me, right? And I used to have a hard stance on like only ask questions and have your frame, but what the reality is, I've actually seen people ask about the weather, ask about their dog's name, ask about whatever, and it's worked. And so I've kind of been like, okay, I'm just not that type of person. I think also it depends kind of what leads you might be working. That's another thing as well. So I'm not like 100. Hey, like it's this or nothing, right? But I tend to be more of the having the expert mentality, right? So that's how I'm really building rapport. But then you also build rapport by really like getting on the say, like you want the, like I've learned this all from NEPQ stuff, but like you want to you want them at least to see you at the same level or better as them, right? You want to hold your frame in all situations, right? So at the very beginning of the call, usually when I'm outbound dialing, I'm like, hey, this is Johnny. Not sure, like if I'm calling an age lead, right? Hey, this is Johnny. Not sure if you remember this, and I apologize. You've probably got a lot of calls about this, but it looks like you recently had requested some information about possibly looking into life insurance to protect your family when you pass away. I actually had just a quick second here before I got to my next appointment. Were you looking for anything specific, or just wanting to review all your options, right? And it's very non-invasive, but also like, hey, I'm busy. Like I actually just had a quick second to get to you here before my next appointment. And so I use that, but then also like being able to like ask questions and then talk about the questions they asked, right? And I gave you guys an example earlier, right? Like what got you motivated? What kind of got you looking around for life insurance? Like, why now? Oh, my daughter died. And then you're like, wait, look, hold on. Like, are you like how's everything going since then? Like, wow, that must be challenging, right? And it's building what here's my philosophy, right? And it's worked really well for me. It's worked really well for other people. Is you only want to build rapport based around the solution you're solving, right? So like you want to attach it, you want to connect it back to what we're doing here. Life insurance, right? And so I'm asking, hey, how wow, that's like what I would say, right? If somebody said, "Hey, my daughter passed," like, wow, were you expecting? Was that kind of expected? No, it's not. Oh, wow. So you kind of see like anything could happen, right? At any point. That builds some urgency, but then also you say, "Hey, did she have any life insurance? Oh, wow." And then you paint the picture like what she just walked through. And then you ask
Yes.
another question. Hey, is that what so, oh, okay. Kind of what I'm hearing you say, I think you had mentioned that you don't want your family to be through that same financial burden as that you did. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? And they're like, no, I would hate for that to happen. Okay. And you just keep building the ammo, building the ammo,
Mm.
building the ammo, so that when those times do come, then you do get objections, which you shouldn't get any objections towards the back end, which you definitely could, but you have so much ammo and they've told you so much of why they want it. They're literally selling themselves why they want it at that
Yeah,
point.
makes sense, man. And it's one of those things that the amateur agent or the novice, right? They hear some of that
No.
stuff and they just steam right through it, like you said, to the next question. But what I like to do is I like to peel back the onions to the layers of the onion, excuse me, and dig a little bit deeper. See, the novice just asks one question, but sometimes you got
Yep.
to ask two, three questions to get down to the core of the thing,
Yeah.
especially in a situation like that. Because once they open up and start talking, like, the more they kind of share, they put themselves in a scenario like that, and it just feels closer to home to them. And you can really start
Mhm.
to, lower that resistance because you're actually talking about something that's serious, it's important, and guaranteed to happen to all of us at one point in one day. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess the next question I have is um when you're about to close someone, right? And you're going through medical questions and that you feel like it's gonna happen and they kind of stall or something like that. When do you kind of sense like you may have to handle an objection and then you run up against, oh well, I need to talk to my partner or spouse or I need to think about it. Like how do you handle those conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So, like, I had one today, right? I'm not perfect. I don't close everybody. I wish I could say I did, but I had this happen earlier today, and I would say that the biggest reason why I'm not able to close is because I don't get deep enough. I'm not able to get deep and peel back the onions, right? Peel back the layers of like what's really going on here. And this guy was like too yes man, that he wasn't wanting to go deep with me, and I wasn't able to close it. He's like, he gave me that, hey, okay, send me the information in the mail, and I could feel that that might be coming because I didn't go deep, right? And so for any of you guys out there, I would say go deeper, right? Ask questions to go deeper into what's the real thing here, right? Like let's put everything off to the side, like, and let's get all the smoke screens out of the way. Like what's the real reason why you want life insurance? But obviously you don't say that. You don't want to be that direct, so you ask certain questions to really start peeling back the onion. The more you peel back the onion, the more likely you're going to close the sale. And once you start getting really good at it, if you get to that point, you know it's going to close. Literally the other day, I was asking like, what are the possible ramifications if we don't do anything about this and you pass way earlier before you thought? Like, what happens to your family then? And she's like, I need a policy today, right? And she first started, hey, I'm just getting quotes, and all of a sudden you lead them down to a place where they're like, I need to buy now, right? So that's where I start feeling it. But you really want to be uninvasive, right? And again, this is all NEPQ. I don't want to say this is any of my stuff. This is just testaments to, like, what I've learned from it. But when I'm getting the I need to think about it, it even sometimes works for the, like, I need to talk to my daughters about it. I've gotten that. And the real way you test it is being super non-invasive. Hey, that's not a problem. I guess Arturo, I guess what's your time frame here in the next day or two on getting back to me, just to kind of see if I'd even be available. And this is something I've never been taught from anybody else in the insurance industry, right? So you say that, they're like, I need to think about it. You say that. They'll say, okay, let me call you later. Let me call you next week. Okay, yeah, I'm not, I guess, sure if I'd randomly be available like that, especially with my schedule and so many people calling in. What I can do if you have your calendar handy is I can actually pull up mine and have you book a specific time with me. That way you're not having to chase me down and vice versa. Would that be appropriate? They'll be like, yeah, let's do that, right? So I literally go in and book a time, right? So from there, I book a time and I'm like, now before I go, um, what what were you, I guess, wanting to go over in your mind, just so to see if I can help? Like, what were you like? I asked that question, like, hey, now before I go, and I actually have another appointment I have to get into, but what were you wanting to go over in your mind and really think about, just to see if I can help and have my see what questions you may have for me on Friday? And they'll say it, right? And I've literally, there's been 3 times in a row like that I've gotten the I need to think about it, but you really want to diffuse it. You book the time, so they're like, okay, cool, they're off the guard. If they don't open up at that point, I'm like, Arturo, like, off the record, like, what would you say kind of the biggest thing that's holding you back here? And they'll say it, right? Because they already booked the time, their guard's like down. So now you can at least get the real objection, right? And a lot of times I'm able to actually get the real objection at that point, because a lot of times it's just smoke screens. People don't want to make a decision. And so they'll say I need to think about it. I need to talk to whoever about that. I need to talk to my daughter, my spouse, my wife, my kids, my dog, my cat, whoever it is. I need to talk to them about that. But what's like really behind that? And so I'm like, I really try to diffuse the situation, really try to bring their guard down. Yeah, that's not a problem. Really not making it a big deal. Hey, that's not a problem. I guess what's your time frame here in the next day or two, just to see if I can help. And I guess what were you wanting to think about and go over in your mind, just so I know what questions you might have when we talk on Thursday. And they'll be like, they'll be like,
Oh
okay.
man.
Like, it's a little expensive. I'm like, okay, that's not a problem. And
Yeah.
do you feel like this could be the answer for you though?
Yeah.
And they'll say yes or no. It's like, okay, hold on. And they'll start wanting to go over in a tangent. You're like, okay, hold on. And I interrupt them. Hey, okay, real quick. So why do you feel like it would though? And you ask why, because when somebody asks why, so Arturo, like this, right? So if I'm like, hey, why do you like your logo so much?
Oh, why do I love it? Because it represents my business and all the hard work I've put in over the years, and now I can finally afford to have the studio that I want and be proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. So okay, so see what you did there? You were backing it up.
Yes.
You were backing what you set up, right? And I asked the question, why do you like that, right? And saying why is it important to you? I asked that earlier in the sale, and I don't know if I'm like blurry or not. I don't
Yeah,
know
hang
what's
on
going
one
on.
second. Hold on one second. Yeah, so what we were
All
saying
right,
is like I
so
was backing it up, right? Go ahead.
yeah, so you're backing it up, right? So what I do, and it's blurry again, which is it's okay. At least you could hear me. So what you want to do in that situation, the reason why you ask, okay, like, do you feel like this could possibly be the answer for you? Then they'll say yes. Okay, okay, hold on, and they'll be like, yeah, well, blah blah blah, and they'll start talking, and you want to stop the tangent, right? Because then they're gonna try to talk themselves out of it, right? So then after that, I'm like, okay, hold on. Why do you feel like it would though? And they say, okay, like it's because of I like that it'll pay out, it'll cover my final expenses, it'll make sure everything's taken care of. Okay, so it would you say that there's anything else you feel like that could possibly be holding you back to see like if you could get approved for this? And they'll be like, no, okay, well that's really all I had. Really the next step would really be seeing if you could get approved for this plan and really making sure that your family would be, I guess, protected. I guess who would be your beneficiary if something were to happen? And I just
Mm,
verify the beneficiary and I go into that, right? So it's
yeah.
very like, it's very non-invasive and you
Yeah, for
really just want
sure.
to go into it and just like, boom, that's
Yeah.
it, right? And they're starting to back up why they want it.
Yeah, I love that. And so just to piggyback on what you said, so I teach the same, it's that's a framework, right? Is you get an objection, and what happens when somebody gives you an objection, I just visualize them doing like this, and they're just waiting for you to like try to just run right through the objection. And a lot of times, what we call is like an ole. So, Johnny's like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm pretty busy, so I don't want you to have to track me down. So let me just pull up my schedule real quick and we can go ahead and pencil something in. That way you can have some time to think about it and then we can get back together. And now what this does is this diffuses them from being like this because they're expecting that and they're kind of confused, like, yeah, yeah, let's just book a call. That's like the easier path. And then from there, then when you ask them a question, right, and they get to talking and then you said they ramble, a couple of minutes go by and they forgot that they've even given you an objection, which is hilarious, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that with like asking a question or just sharing a story about somebody that this same scenario happened to. And it's very funny. It's like that one moment, people just try to run through an objection, but instead you can diffuse the situation by asking a secondary, what we call like a momentum question, that then allows you to circle back, right? And then isolate what the true objection is, because it's not that they need to think about it. They've been thinking about it or doing research for years. It's not that. They just want to stall and delay. And then you want to say, isolate, like, what would be stopping you from doing this right now? And then they're going to go
Yeah.
on a tangent. And then, you just kind of like stop them in their tracks, right? And then you can get to the core of the real reason. So the whole framework isn't to try to handle that objection, because I need to think about it isn't even the real objection anyway. And the novice is trying to handle that instead of handling the true objection, which is
Yeah.
some limiting belief that they have, whether it's too expensive or they need to ask somebody. So now they're giving their power of their future to somebody else, right? Or something else that they can't think of. So yeah, man, that's powerful. That's good stuff. Um, all right, he's back. Cool, we're good. So
Dude, I'm
it's
so
clear now.
sorry about this,
No, it's
bro.
good. So, with that being said, um, where did you learn like how to diffuse the objection when you get something like that? Where'd you
Well,
learn that framework?
yeah, so a lot of it was from Alex Hormozy, right? So like, but he like from him, like I understood like, okay, if you're getting an I need to think about it, it's actually a good thing because you're speaking with somebody in power. You're really empowering them to make a decision. You're speaking with the true decision maker, right? So that's good. Now we need to help them and empower them to make a decision at this point.
Yeah.
You need to empower, you need to explain away concerns. You need to really, let's talk through this and why this would
Yes.
make sense or why this wouldn't make sense. And so honestly, I've gotten to a point where if I get any objection, I'm actually happy that I get it. I need to think about it because at least I'm speaking with somebody that's a decision maker
Right,
at that point,
exactly.
right?
And your
And then
internet broke out, but I had just said that, which is they don't need to think about it. They've already probably done research or been thinking about it for a
yes,
long time. They're procrastinating. So they're saying I need to think about it as an issuance to one, delay the decision, which means they're a procrastinator, or two, they're trying to cast their power, their purchasing power
yes,
off to somebody else, which is what I was saying as your internet
yeah,
was going out. So yeah, that's pretty good, man. So
it's huge.
you can see
So,
that we're
so
kind of the same student of the game, but go ahead.
oh, exactly, right? So like Hormozy has tons of content and valuable stuff on this. Um, which makes sense. Like some of the stuff though, like I was trying to like like take because I understood the concept of it, but I'm like, how do you do this over the phone? And also like how do you do this with a senior? Because I think the market, obviously human psychology is the same, but also it's a little bit different. So I'm like, how do you incorporate all this, right? But I've started like Jeremy Miner going through the NEPQ stuff just on YouTube and just going through his YouTube channel and looking up all these top objections that you'll get. It's and like the phases that you go through within the process. That's really where I've learned this stuff, right? This is not me, but it's like really like sitting down and like you were saying, being a student of the game and sitting down and being like, let's like break this down, not just a word track, because a word track is easy, it's simple, and it honestly won't really solve the root issue, right? But if I can understand why I say certain things and why you say certain things, you'll be a lot more successful, right?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, right? If I didn't actually get them to make a decision, like they feel like they're buying a plan there, and I'm actually empowering them to make it a real decision and why they're doing it. What would happen is, yeah, maybe I'd be able to push through and maybe I'll be able to get into the application, but then the social and banking would be a lot more prevalent, right? So what I do now is like that stuff, maybe it takes 30 to 45 minutes to actually get to the place where we're picking out a number that they feel comfortable with. But then the next 10, I can finish the application in 10 minutes or less, right? So it's really figuring out and dealing with all the objections up front. And then on the back end, the social and banking, they have so much trust and rapport with you that they're just ready to go, right? And I haven't, what's crazy is I used to be like, okay, if I give my national producer number out, it'll be a lot more successful, right? I'll have a lot more trust and credibility. But the crazy part is my closing ratio has gone up like almost double and like 150%. And I've never given my like my national producer out once through this whole time because we're actually solving a problem. And it's not just like, hey, it's really taking myself out of the sale. And I think I used to think that all the time, but this is truly like, let me take my commission out of the sale, like out of it at all completely. Like, let's actually solve a root issue, a root product, like a problem here with whatever product it is. Once
Yeah.
you solve that problem, everything else will be fine. Persistency will be a lot better, right? Your closing ratio will be a lot better. Your like everything else will get better once you take yourself out and put them on the pedestal and just be like, okay, what problem are we solving? And
Yeah.
we go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to, I'm very observant and I can listen to what you're saying, but I'm listening on so many levels. But one of the things that I did notice is that you didn't stay in the echo chamber of learning inside the insurance industry. You didn't just get information from inside the insurance agency. I heard you
Yeah.
mention NEPQ, or right, like in that Jeremy Miner world, but also I heard you mention some Alex Hormozy. So
Yeah.
how important to your development has it been for you to just branch out of just saying the same thing, reading from a script, using word traps, regurgitating the same thing that's been used for the last 60 years, right? How important has that been, getting in other rooms, learning from other people that's helped you develop your own style for sales?
Yeah, it's been huge because it's they're big people for a reason, right? There's another guy, Andy Elliott, right? He just got into the insurance industry, but he's been car selling forever, and I think the principles are the same. The principles are the same no matter what. but it's like we all heard the same tricks. Hey, show 3. This is another one, right? That I never used to do, but now I do, right? And it's like show 3 options, lead them to the middle. They'll pick the middle, right? But now I only show one number. I don't show multiple numbers. I show one number and we talk about it. And that's it, right? So, but to your question, I go out and I'm listening to these people so much because I'm trying to understand the psychology of a buyer. And the reality is, like, the insurance industry is great. There's a good people in there, but like there's not really people breaking it down to the psychological level, why you say certain things, and also hearing it from a different perspective. Yeah, you're selling different products, but I need to think about it. I need to talk to my wife. The price is too high. They're all the same. It's just really getting to the root issue. And so listening to other people, like how somebody sells a car, has helped because it's allowed me to really like get into the psychology of like what's really going on here. Not just a word track, because it's easy to memorize a word track, but like what's actually, like, let's break down what is actually going on right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I was just going through my phone and like Andy Elliott, I was sitting in the front row at 8%. And so I got to share the stage with him. And he sent me like a little personal message, which was super dope, dude. It was like, yeah, what's up, Arturo?
Arturo, what's up, brother? Andy Elliott. Hey, just wanted to reach out to you. We're at home writing a bunch of training this week.
Yeah, that was super dope. That dude's an absolute beast, bro. Taking a company from where it was in 3 years to 100 million. I'm, getting in that room and leveling up my network too with people like that. Brad Lee, Eric Thomas. It's just absolutely insane. With the people that Cody has been putting in the room. So it's very important to get in the room because you don't really realize the things that you'll pick up, right? They say if you stick around a barbershop long enough, you'll get a haircut, right? So that's one of the things that people that are maybe newer or novices don't really understand, that you need to get in the room. But also you need to get outside of your industry or your echo chamber and learn some different things that you can then bring back and innovate and add a couple more bullets to your arsenal. So as we kind of wrap this up, man, what is probably one major piece of advice or one piece of information that has really influenced and changed your business that now you implement every single day that you focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say in terms of sales, I'm going to do two parts, right? The first one is like in sales, diffuse the prospect. You don't want to be like overbearing. Hey, we're like, you want to assume the sale, but you don't want to like be overbearing and telling them like, hey, the reason for my call is we're getting you a policy today. We're going to get you signed up. Go ahead and grab pen and paper and let's get this done. It's like, whoa, there's so much triggering, so much sales resistance and like triggering the prospect so much. So I would say like really diffuse, because the more you diffuse, that's not a problem. Okay. And that's fairly common. Stay neutral throughout the sale, and be very neutral throughout it. I used to be like, we can definitely help you out. I'm like, I don't even know if we can help you yet, but let me ask you a few more questions, see if we could possibly be a fit or possibly help you out here. So that's another one. And then another one, in terms of like just in general, is I would say there's a couple things. The first one is be yourself, right? I would say there's a lot of us want, especially in the social media space, we want to be like other people, but like it's not like the world doesn't need another Arturo Johnson. The world doesn't need another Andy Elliott. The world doesn't need another Cody Askins. They need you. So like own it and be cool with that and like be you, right? You don't need to be any other people. And that's one thing I've really been trying to step into is like, I don't need value from other people. I need to get the value from within, because all of the other stuff is like smoke screens, right? And it's like fleeting. And that's like that's biblical, right? We need value from ourselves and like who God says we are, not what other people say. And then the other thing is just become a master of the game, right? For me, what I started doing is right when I found about the insurance industry, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to sales calls, I'm listening and like studying so much day in and day out. When I'm at the gym, I don't want to miss out on the knowledge. I don't want to miss out on the nugget somebody may be dropping or whatever. So I'm willing to go out and get help, get advice, call somebody up. Hey, how do I do this better? How do I do that better? And have extreme accountability and then extreme humility as well. Take action and don't be the person who's falls into the mental masturbation, right? Don't get a high from just thinking about possibly getting better. Like actually put in the reps. When you ask for advice from somebody, implement it. Take massive action, and then you'll get a lot of feedback and figure out what works and what doesn't, right? For me, NEPQ, I've gotten a lot of people that have said, hey, you're getting really good at NEPQ, but the reality is I've only been doing it for 2 weeks, a week and a half actually, but next week will be 2 weeks fully. But it's because I just studied. I'm like, all right, I'm going to just dive in and go after it, and then listen to Jeremy Minor stuff at the end of the day to see how I can actually change the tonality. And I've gotten better and better and better and better and better. Because here's the thing. A lot of people think it's going to take a lot of time to like get good, which it is, right? But also you can become the top 80 to 90% just by spending 20 quality hours actually studying. And so I was like, a lot of people wait 5, 10, 20, 30 years or forever to start the 20 hours of focused, dialed in work and in like studying. But I was like, hey, I'm just going to dive in, listen to everything that he has for free, and then start like paying into that stuff, because he's dropping so many bombs right now that I could just get for free and just implement it so that I can pay into whatever it is. So that's what I would say. I know it's long-winded, but I think if you take massive action and you stay humble and stay fully accountable, knowing that this person didn't buy because of me, that everything will work out.
Yeah, and that's so good, man. And it's being a student of the game. And when you're saying study sales, it's not just studying what your upline says or your meeting,
Yeah.
or in the training that you get inside your agency or whatever. It's going outside and getting information from other brilliant people that have been in sales, and then making it yourself, right? Like, well, I had to get up and go write that down, which is be the best Arturo. That's what I got from what you said, is try to be the best version of yourself. Take all of that information that you have, distill it down, right? And then make it your own and be you. The world doesn't need another Arturo. It needs you to become the best you that's possible. And then practice, right? Put your 20 hours in, right? And what does that lead to? That leads to mastery. And what's mastery? To execute effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. Johnny, man, this has been absolutely amazing. Hopefully I can get you here in Nashville to go over some of this stuff when we do the 7-figure sales summit, man. But if people listen to this and they're like, man, I want to learn more from you, right? Maybe they're looking for some training from you, or maybe they want to join your agency. Where can they find you, and what's the best place for people to contact you on your socials?
Yeah, so I actually have I interview a lot of people, obviously, like Arturo. I was able to interview him. People like Sean Mike, Cody Askins, John Wetmore a few times, like Bowen Sweeney, big players in the game. So just check out my YouTube channel, Johnny Nitafan, JOHNNY, Nitafan, NITAFAN. Also look up or Final Expense Training. I'm really diving deep into that, wanting to give you guys the best. I mean, there's live calls that I'm doing. I've done 6 of them. I have more to come that are all on my YouTube channel that you can listen to me actually like overcome certain objections, and then reach out on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. And I'll be happy to connect with you and see if we could be a fit.
Awesome. But Johnny, man, thanks again. You definitely dropped some nuggets. I love what you're doing. I love seeing your growth. And now I love being a part of it, giving you a platform to share and to pour into agents. Man, thanks again for coming on the Rainmaker podcast.
Appreciate you, brother.
Awesome. Hey, guys, if you love this video, go ahead and drop a comment or like this video for the Rainmaker podcast. But also, if you love this training, make sure that you guys click the link in the description, as we're going to be doing the 7-figure sales summit. It's going to be a 2-day event where we're going to be immersed. So if you're looking for change, if you're tired of getting, I need to think about it, if you're tired of getting, I need to speak to my partner or spouse, and you want to be an absolute master, right? You want to have mastery, which is to execute effortlessly without the use of conscious resources, to level up, and to have that 150% increase in your business. You want to make sure that you come to the 7-figure sales summit. All right, we'll see you in the next Rainmaker podcast.